Morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Let's wait just another minute here. Working from home today, as you can see. Not sick, though, for the record. Looks like we're going to get some snow tonight, huh? Might be all of us working from home tomorrow. Okay, let's get going here. All right, before I forget to mention it, in addition to Unit 9 vocab starting this week, you did have your test. Task in here. And I posted as I often do, the corrections a little bit late. So if you haven't already done the vocab test corrections, it's on a separate post. You can repost those corrections however you want, just showing me, what you found wrong, what should have been, and get that in by sometime tonight, okay, for the other 20 points of that test grade. And that'll be an easy way to solidify your grade, okay? But in the meantime, sections 1 through 4 bookwork, that's gonna be due by tomorrow night instead of Wednesday night because of the short week, because we don't have school on Friday or Monday for that matter. So I've got a long weekend coming up. Okay, grammar lesson 17, that's posted with a small video like usual. We are gonna be wrapping up another grammar unit here soon, having a quote unquote grammar test, probably next week or the week after. And then finally, we did study guide questions on the Odyssey book 9. They were due last night. Those have been checked, and I didn't want to go over that. And that'll be pretty much it. Okay, now I say here there will be a new assignment that you may be required to finish today, and it is. Okay, so books, quote unquote, books 10 and 11, which is a total of like, I don't know, 4.5, 5 pages of reading. I'm gonna ask you to go ahead and do that today and get those questions done on that today. Okay, so there is. Let me just double check and look with you under classwork. We do have don't pay attention to that grammar unit 2 test. I just realized that should have been in my AP feed. So I'll be switching that over. Don't worry about that. But this assignment here, read Odyssey books 10 and 11, they're very abridged. Using the video linked here, the main slides text source from slide number 15, pages 40 through 45. Questions are on slide 21. So in case anybody's having a little trouble fumbling around with those directions, then or finding those sources, that's where they are. Okay, gonna come off the screen share. Anybody got any questions about what's going on this week at all? Okay, so again, ignore that grammar test. I'll take that off as I finish this class. Okay, why don't you go ahead and access your answers to the Odyssey book 9 questions. This was a good bit of reading. And I'm probably, without my monitor here, not gonna be able to look at the text while I talk to you guys. So if we can participate, that would be great. So probably the trickiest thing about it's a really strange story, obviously. The tricky things about it, number one, the timeline, right? The whole in medias res starts in the middle, flashes back. We're in the catching up progress, part of that process, right? But also how it just kind of switches back and forth between pieces of stories and then paraphrasing, the other parts as it's filled in. I know it's kind of confusing and strange. It feels kind of random, but it's just kind of one of those things. The more you think about it, the more you look at it, the more you realize it's kind of the story that influences like literally all the other stories, especially when it comes to anything involving a journey or something that's epic, or certainly something like in the more fantasy realm. When you think like Lord of the Rings and things like that, it takes so much from the Odyssey. But really anything, the whole idea of a journey, but you're really discovering something more about yourself than you are just getting someplace. Okay, so from the first question was rereading lines 24 to 26. What is Odysseus' value? Most highly that proves he is a true epic hero. One of the things about epic heroes is that he or she is going to represent what, Roman?
Um, he most highly values home and his family.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And in a way, I think we're supposed to realize that that represents the Greek values of civilization and home, and how that's actually, you know, emphasized here to kind of show how it's the opposite of how the Cyclope, that's how you say Cyclops in plural, how the Cyclopes lived. It's like great care in the storytelling, telling how the Cyclopes lived these like lonely existences, and how they were savage, and you know didn't live as families or communities or groups or anything like that. Okay, next one was Odyssey is meant to be read orally during books 9 through 12. Odysseus relates his adventures, so we're hearing that. How would you imagine Odysseus would speak? How would you characterize his voice? Well, you got to imagine him telling it to this court at King Alcinous's, right? And he's kind of convincing them that it's him, right? Like there's a strange guy that's washed up on their island. They have no idea who he is. And so as he tells it, he's going to sound, you know, assertive and confident, and knowing him probably like a little bit even boastful, right? So kind of it might have been kind of a weird question there, but that's mostly what we were looking for. Okay, and 3, so lines 29 to 55, think the situation turned out to be different from what it seemed first. How does this help you understand the reaction of Odysseus' men to the Lotus Eaters? So we kind of understand what goes on with the Lotus Eaters. It's kind of funny, really. You see examples of this all through the story, and that is of temptations of comfortable shortcuts or ways to kind of relax, but then it ends up being a situation that makes you forget about what's important, right? So it's supposed to be kind of a big extended metaphor. Roman, was that a hand there? No. Anybody else? What you had for this one on number 3? Let's do the question this way. Who can kind of paraphrase what does happen with the Lotus Eaters? They land on this island, and these people do what? And then Odysseus' men do what? And he has to do what? All right, Roman, go ahead.
They land on the island, and the natives are all chill and stuff, and they give him the lotus, which makes Odysseus's men also like not care about anything and forget that they want to go home.
Pretty much. So the lotus pretty much seems like what to us?
A drug.
Yeah, some kind of, you know, relaxing recreational drug, right? Which seems like an okay thing to them because it's making them forget about their worries, right? But you know, it's probably part of the story that it was supposed to be like a lesson for like, you know, younger people who are hearing the story, and then not to like give in to like easy vices and things like that. And Odysseus does manage to keep his head in the situation, not even really being cocky at all, and drags them kicking and screaming. You know, they want more of the lotus and just hang out and be chill, like Roman said at the Lotus Eaters. I was getting a kick out of that one. So was it too lenient or too harsh? You know, I mean, you probably say that he did a pretty good job here, right? He kept he refocused his crew's attention to trying to get home, which is of course what's really important to them. All right, so up to number 6, and those lines, Odysseus is referred to the strategist. So how does he reveal his trait in this passage? What does he kind of figure out in the situation with the Cyclops? Let's kind of cover a couple questions here, really. Number 6. Nobody. Here we go. To the text. Hold on just a sec here. I have to kind of flip back and forth. Guys seeing that? Okay. So it's mentioned before that he has this big thing of this, this wonderful brandy wine or whatever it is. What does he decide to do with that here, which gives him an advantage in the situation and eventually allows them to strategize their way out of there? And I can't really see your hand, so if you can kind of speak up.
I don't know if this is right, but like from reading it, it kind of like seems like he diluted it, like diluted the alcohol with water, but I don't know. Like,
Well, he was talking, that's when he's talking about just how like wonderful and how strong it was that in general they could be diluted with water and still be shared with a whole bunch of humans. But instead, he gets a whole bunch of the concentrated stuff. And what does he basically do to the Cyclops?
He gets them drunk.
He gets them drunk, right? Which is kind of funny. Okay, so he does that, and then they're able to kind of strategize their way out of there, which involves, he realizes they can't, they're not going to be able to get out in general. They can't just kill the Cyclops right away, right? Because it's got that huge slab of rock in front of the cave, right? So then eventually they get the strategy with the big olive tree trunk and sharpening it and all that stuff, which we'll get to in a sec here. Okay. In 163 to 69, Agamemnon was the Greek king who led the war against the Trojans. Consider what Odysseus says about Agamemnon. What point is he making about himself by claiming this association? And when he's saying that, he's basically announcing his importance and his prominence. And he follows it up by saying, surely Zeus would stop the share. Surely Zeus would frown upon you. He doesn't welcome us as guests, right? Of course, they were going to steal all the Cyclops' stuff. But the Cyclops isn't buying that, right? He says he doesn't care for Zeus, and you realize that he's, the son of a god, specifically Poseidon there, right? So that doesn't quite work, but that's why Odysseus is doing that. Okay. What could they, not necessarily three of anything that happened that kind of shows that luck was on Odysseus' side, which also kind of shows us that Athena was probably kind of helping him out, right? With things just kind of working out for him. What are they able to do that's kind of almost kind of lucky that they get away with it? They do lose several men, by the way, right? Anybody? Anything on number 8? Alex, thank you.
They were able to find something that they could use as a weapon, and they had enough people to be able to throw the spear at the Cyclops, and they were able to blind him.
Exactly. Good. Not all luck, right? I mean, he does come up with a strategy, and that kind of connects with number 9, what leadership qualities Odysseus the hero display in this passage, and that is, his strength and his cunning, right? To do that with the trunk of the tree, right? But kind of skipping up to number 10, I want to make sure we finish here. What fault do we see in Odysseus that actually puts them in danger once they actually get out? They tie themselves to the bottom of the sheep. That's how they get out, right? Because the Cyclops is blinded. But then what do they do? What does Odysseus do when they're sailing off? Roman?
He starts to brag.
Oh yeah. Really brags. He yells back at him, and that enables the Cyclops. And he's throwing these big boulders at him to kind of hear them and almost get them with one of them, right? But you hear that, right? And that's kind of Odysseus, Odysseus kind of like not quite absorbing the whole, like, well, I need to maybe stop thinking of myself as almost a god, right? But he kind of keeps doing that, right? He has a little bit of this I am the greatest kind of mentality, right? Okay, and then finally, there are some prophecies kind of sprinkled through that there's knowledge that Odysseus's men are doomed. Why do you think Homer may have given this information rather than keeping the audience in the dark? Not necessarily just one right answer to that question. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet. You know they're not going to make it, right? But here, you kind of know Odysseus is probably going to make it, but you don't know the rest of his men are going to make it. And basically, a lot of you guys didn't get that question. But it's basically just to see, instead of concentrating on whether or not they're going to make it, it forces the concentration on the story, on how, like the, the morality and how Odysseus conducts himself, even knowing that that probably, maybe, or is definitely going to happen, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to have to keep moving here. So let's just remind ourselves that you have, let me go back and show you the text here. It is not a terribly huge amount of text. Okay, so book 10 is Circe, the Grace of the Witch. It's got a lot of it just kind of paraphrased here, okay, and just a little bit. It's in verse. And right after that, we go right into book 11, The Land of the Dead. So this was, I don't know, a page and a half there, page and a half here, and then it ends. So it's like 5 pages of reading, okay? And you have some questions, and I've identified the slide in there, so you should be fine to find that. And then we'll do another longer section for Wednesday night, review that on Thursday, and that is the end of the week. Okay. Remember, your vocab unit is due by tomorrow night, so don't wait too long to do that. But we will definitely go live tomorrow to review what you guys are reading now. If you have any questions, all good? All right. Thanks for being here. See you soon.